And welcome back. Welcome back. Hey, you're catching me in my 72-hour fast. And right now, y'all, right now, I am 67 hours into this week's fast, a little over 67 hours, as we move through this space. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to reverse their diabetes, who want to be metabolically healthy, who want to set themselves up for success as they move into the wellness space and as they take care of their bodies and they manage chronic illnesses. Hey, if you're new as well, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And let you know that we are excited and happy that you are here in this space. If you have questions as we go throughout the show, go ahead and make sure you put those in the comments because I'd love to get to those. Make sure you put a Q in front of that question so that I'll know that that's one that I need to get to as I'm searching through. Whatever platform you are joining us from, we're glad that you're here. We should be streaming now on Instagram, on Twitch, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and then of course right here on Facebook, and then of course right here on YouTube. As we do in the course of our Friday check-ins, we're going to be taking a look at how to start a fast, how to get through a fast successfully, and then of course how to break a fast. But we also are going to be taking a look at my monitors and what's going on with me during this fast. You'll see there I have my glucose monitors off to the side that we'll take a look at, and then right below me that is my Dexcom Clarity Report, which we'll take a look at those numbers as we move through the show today. So thank you for being here. If you've not already done so, we've been working through this journey. New year, new you, right? Do you see that right? Where is that? Right here. Right over there. Right? So new year, new you. This way, right? Okay. Somewhere over here. New year, new you. And we've had an amazing run as we've talked about various things. One of the most important mini-series that we did was the science of food. And that is on the YouTube channel. It's in a playlist that you can go back and you can watch. It talks about, not science of food, science of hunger. It talks about what are those things in our body that are triggering hunger that can help us as we deal with hunger to understand where it is and understand how we set ourselves up for success. So make sure that you get out there and make sure you watch that. And we'll be talking more about that as we move throughout the season. But new year, new you. Why are we doing what we're doing? And let's go ahead and let's set that up. So diabetes is a chronic progressive disease, is how it's defined in the books. But we are learning so much more about diabetes and learning that diabetes touches so many aspects of our lives. When we think about chronic disease, a lot of our chronic illnesses that we suffer around the world are tied to diabetes. If you think back years ago, people had mortality and morbidity. In other words, they got sick and they passed away, they died, from complications of infection, from complications of trauma. They injured themselves. They didn't get treatment. They had some infection. We didn't have the right treatment, and so they got sick, and people passed away. If you flash forward now, a lot of the illnesses that we have are not illnesses of trauma or illnesses related to infection. They are what we term lifestyle diseases. Those are those diseases that come directly from our modern way of living, from our modern life. And in this space, we've been talking about how do we improve our health? How do we jumpstart our metabolism? How do we improve our insulin sensitivity? And in fact, ultimately, how do we reverse our diabetes? That's right. That's the word I use, reverse diabetes. For the first time in its history, the American Diabetic Association put out criteria for what they term remission, right? Diabetes in remission, surrogate word for probably reverse. And so for the first time, we are acknowledging that it is not necessarily It does not necessarily have to be a chronic, progressive, worsening disease, but we can actually do things that set us going in the opposite direction. And so, in this path that we've been on, new year, new you, how do we design a better version of ourselves? How do we put things in place? How do we put procedures in place that help us move in that direction of reversing diabetes? Often people don't succeed, not because they don't have drive, not because they don't have know-how, not because they don't have a desire, they don't have a vision. They don't have success because they don't have a process. They don't have a procedure. They don't have pathway. And so New Year, New You has been our way of directing, helping to guide along that pathway so that we set ourselves up for ultimate success as we are moving through this space. Now, you're watching me and you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, I am not diabetic. So do I need to be listening to this? And the answer is absolutely yes. Because diabetes is the prototypic disease, is the prototypic metabolic disease, which means that it's hitting a lot of other diseases that we see. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, metabolic syndrome itself, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and even some cancers have been associated with diabetes. And of course, there's pre-diabetes. If we think around the world, there are over 1 billion people on the planet that have diabetes or pre-diabetes. We're not including in that number the people who are at risk or have had heart attacks, strokes, who have high blood pressure, have high cholesterol, and all the other metabolic syndromes that I just described. All of those people improve if we follow the pathway. If we head on this journey that we've been on, those disease processes will improve. And so as we've been in the space, walking down the journey, there are several tools that we've learned, lots of tools that we've learned actually. And one of the most powerful tools that we've learned is what we're doing today. But going back, we've learned how to create a meal plan or create a meal that speaks to our bodies. We talk about balanced bites. Every bite that you take, everything that you ingest, everything that you eat has a signal that goes to the body that tells the body how to process it. And if we do a good job of sending the right signals with the food, then our bodies are able to respond in a way that then causes improvement in our health. Balanced bites, balanced bites. So fuel your body with balanced bites. So one of the tools that we've learned. We talked about emotional intelligence because often the triggers that we have in our lives are the triggers that push us to eat in a certain way. So the habits that we form, the routines, right? The things that we do just because, not because we're hungry, but just because that's what we do. We go out on Tuesdays and we have coffee and a donut because that's what we do on Tuesdays. We go to the movies and we eat popcorn because that's what we do when we go to the movies, right? On football day, that's right. On Thanksgiving, on Christmas, on New Year's, on your birthday, there are certain things that we do simply because that's been the habit, that's the routine, that's the process that we have formed. So not because we're hungry. Emotions, when we get tired enough, angry enough, frustrated enough, when we become bored enough, we eat because the eating, the food that we eat, somehow helps to calm us. We eat also because there are just things in our environment. You walk by that desk and there's that there's that bowl of fruits or there's that candy and you're not hungry, but guess what? Hey, there it is. I had someone tell me recently that, their house is situated in such a way that you have to pass by the kitchen to get to the bathroom. Right, one of those old houses because they put the bathroom in case the back porch, and that's where their bathroom is. So every time they're going by the bathroom, guess what? That's a trigger. That's a signal that says, hey, let me stop over here and get something. We eat also because the food has created this thing in our mind that the taste is just so. The bliss point is what it's called. The perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat. When you eat it, you just can't have one. The bliss point. And so we eat for these various reasons, right? So emotional intelligence says, hey, I've got to understand how I'm feeling, how the people around me are feeling, what their emotions are, and then I can use that for my benefit. So all those are tools that we've learned. But one of the most amazing tools that we've learned is, of course, the tool of fasting. And we love fasting. We like fasting because it hits all of three of the pillars that we talk about when we talk about reversing diabetes. That is decreasing insulin, suppressing the appetite, and then, of course, reducing sugar. So let's walk through that process. If you are fasting, like people will do various types of fasting, then they are not taking in any food. So one, they're decreasing automatically. They're reducing the sugar that they're taking in because there is no sugar, right? Because they're fasting. If we decrease sugar, then the body doesn't have to produce insulin, or you don't have to take insulin from outside. So we're hitting pillar number 3, reducing sugar. By doing that, we now reduce the amount of insulin that's in our body, pillar number 1. And because insulin is an appetite stimulant, we decrease our appetite, or suppress our appetite by doing that. So all 3 pillars hit by fasting. Fasting also improves so many of our other metabolic diseases. So that I've often said, or I've been saying the last several weeks, that we could start this show in a different way. We could start this show by saying, hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. I'm Wood that's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I help people reduce their weight. I help people lose weight and become metabolically healthy, and we're using fasting as a way to do that. Or the same thing, I help people improve their blood pressure, or improve their cholesterol, or deal with their polycystic ovarian syndrome, and we are doing that with fasting. Notice the benefit of fasting is, I don't want to say universal, but it encompasses so much more than just diabetes. But it is a great way to deal with diabetes. And so what we've been doing, we've been on the path to reverse our diabetes. We learned all of these tools, and on a weekly basis, we do a fast. A 72-hour fast is what I do. I come on and we talk about how do we fast successfully? What are the things that we need to understand? What are the things that we need to know so that we can implement them in our lives and we can set ourselves up for metabolic success? How does our body work? How does food, what are the signals that food's sending to our bodies? How do our hormones get involved? And what do they do? Right? So all of those things, ghrelin and leptin, the hunger and the satiety hormones, how do they impact the stretch of our stomach? How do they impact the release of certain hormones like cholecystokinin or protein YY? How do those things then influence us? Because often we say to people, if you were strong enough, if you had enough willpower, if we make it a moral issue. But there are things in our bodies, there are hormones, there are situations that push us in the direction. That's what those triggers are. And so how do we then set ourselves up for success? By applying strategies and setting up a practice so that we are successful. And that's what we've been doing here in this space. And so you are here now with us as we are moving through one of these check-ins where we're talking about how do we fast successfully. Okay, there we are. All right, so I do see, let's go over and say hello. I see Steve out there. Steve says, hey. Oh, he's saying hello. Says, have to pick up my grandson. Have a good one. Awesome. Thank you for stopping through, Steve. Really appreciate that. And wherever you are, whatever platform, thank you for joining us as we are moving through this space. Yes, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at blood sugars, right? So let's start there. Actually, no, let's do our check-in. So whenever you're doing anything and you're trying to improve, whenever you are making a change in your process, you want to make sure that you are doing, you're evaluating. And so in our space, we are currently evaluating fasting, right? So how am I doing? This is what the check-in is. So I'll be checking in to let you know how I'm doing physically, how I'm doing mentally, how I'm doing emotionally, because that allows me to see how my body's responding, see if I'm getting the benefits that I think I should be getting from the fasting, and then I can pivot or make changes as I move through the space so that I continue to be successful. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so let's go ahead and let's do our check-in. So how am I feeling physically? And as I mentioned, I am 60, how many hours did I say? 65 hours or thereabouts into this week's fast, and I am feeling energetic. Yeah, and I've done a good job of resting over the course of the last 3 days. If you remember earlier on when we did our show on Monday, I said that I had come back from a trip and I had not slept well coming off of that trip and had some other things go on, which we'll talk about in a minute. And so did not rest. And so that first day coming back, I was very tired. And I think part of that was the whole reason why my fast, because I started fasting on Sunday and broke that fast on Monday after our show, but there were a lot of emotional things going on. I was tired, and so that food noise began happening, and then of course the heat model, that trigger, right, that happened, and so we broke the fast there. But since then, I've done a good job of resting and getting good sleep. Probably need more, but better job than I did that first day. So I'm not feeling as though I'm drained. I'm not feeling as though I'm hitting a wall. Not feeling as though I'm walking through quicksand or mud, as people will say when they talk about their energy level. The other thing is I'm not feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty. I'm not feeling any palpitations. A lot of those will have to do with how we adjust medications that we may be on. So if you're fasting and you're not adjusting medications, then you may begin feeling some of those symptoms. And it's not necessarily the fasting that's doing it, it's just that we have not adjusted medication. The other thing that I've been pretty conscientious about is hydration. I've got my cup on my New Year, New You mug. And so I've been doing a very good job of hydrating. And so palpitations sometimes will come if we are not hydrated, then the volume of blood in our body goes down, right? The total amount of fluid. Well, if the body still has to get the same amount of nutrients, oxygen to the cells, what happens is that the heart rate has to go up so that you're sending the same amount of nutrients to the body, right? You have less carrying capacity, and so in order to maintain the same end result, then the heart rate goes up, and people feel that like palpitations. And so you want to make sure that you are maintaining good hydration so that that you don't have that, right? So that's how I'm feeling physically. Mentally, I'm clear. I feel as though I am able to process tasks that I have to do, conversations that I'm having. I'm not feeling like I'm grasping for words or that my mentation is sluggish. Sometimes people will say they feel foggy-headed or like they're in a bubble or they're in a daze. That often goes along with the physical, right? Because if you're not rested, as you know, sometimes the thought process is a little slow. They've shown that people who aren't rested, people who don't get enough sleep, are delayed in their responses. They're delayed in their thought process. They're a little sluggish in that, and they may not think as clearly. So right now, I'm actually feeling pretty good, and in terms of my thought process. And then, of course, emotions. Earlier this week, some conversations that I had, some things that went on, and so coming into this week, some interesting emotional things going on, or emotional milieu going on in my body and in my thoughts, and that resulted, as you remember, so I started the fast earlier this week than I normally would, and then broke that fast after our show, and then of course restarted it, and we're into our 72 hours now. But much of that initial first day or so in this week, first day and a half, were the heat model, right? Those triggers, those emotions that were coming, the conversations that I had that I didn't process well, or didn't deal with at the time, that kind of built up, right? And remember that those emotions, they're kind of like a roller coaster, right? When that car gets to the top, you can jump and scream and yell and shout all you want, but the car is coming back down. And so if those emotions are not dealt with as they're building, what happens is once they become so intense that they kind of break through the decisions that we've made about what we're going to eat, when we're going to eat, how we're going to eat, and of course in fasting, right? So we're going to make sure that we're dealing with those. So that's our check-in for today. Let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's take a look at blood sugars And here you'll see, let's grab this one. This is my blood sugar on my Freestyle Libre. Currently I'm wearing a Freestyle Libre and I'm wearing a Dexcom G7. And so you'll see there, if you look at the white kind of squiggly line down there near the middle of the bottom, that's my blood sugar. And you'll see that right above it, there's a faint white line. That's blood sugar of 100. And then the dashed red line right below the squiggly white line, that's 70. So my blood sugar over the course of the last 12 hours at least has been between 70 and 100. In fact, if I was a little bit more accurate in this one, I would guesstimate probably 80 or 90. But we'll see that in just a minute when we take a look at the Dexcom, because it will allow us to see those numbers. And so here is my this is my Freestyle Libre. Down at the bottom, you see sensor ends in 2 days. So I've had this on now. I think this is a 3+, I believe, so 15 days. So I've had this on now for what's 15 minus 2, 13 days. Okay, and you'll see there that bottom white line that's right below the squiggly, that is 50. Okay, and I've deliberately set my ranges, my alerts, so that it goes from 70 to 150. Normally it's set to 180, and I don't want my blood sugars to get that high before I'm alerted, right? Because I can make decisions on the fly on how to manage blood sugars. That's a whole nother conversation. But okay, now let's take a look at my Dexcom Clarity. And you'll see there for the 12 hours, kind of the same thing. This one, let's go ahead and I'm going to get my finger on this so we can actually see what those numbers are. So this is where we are right now, 85, and we're going to kind of scroll back throughout the last 12 hours, and you'll see that we've kind of maintained kind of the same thing below 100. 70s, 80s. I think I saw a 90 in there somewhere. So let me back up. 70, 70, 69, 78, 81, 2, 3, 5. Okay, actually I thought I did, but it doesn't look that like over the last 12 hours at least that I went over 100. If I change this to the 24-hour view and do the same thing, we kind of scroll backwards. And what I'm looking for is to see what's the highest that it went over the last 24 hours. Because that would be in my 48 to 50 hour. So here, okay, here's a 92. Oh, a 94. Oh, 98. There you go. Okay, so, and there was actually 100, 101. So we'll take a look and we'll see a little bit more detail on this when we do the review of the actual graphs. So let's go ahead and now let's take a look at what my monitors are saying. And as you know, I've got a Keto Mojo monitor, which gives me glucose and ketones. I've got a Contour, which gives me glucose. And let's go ahead and grab a strip for each of those out of our handy dandy container here. And let's go ahead and grab a Lancet since we're in here. So I'm going to use that one right now. Get this thing back over there. And let's go ahead and get a strip. Got those falling out. And so this is a strip. We're going to put this into the Contour. And these are for the Keto Mojo. Here is a glucose and here is ketone. So let's go ahead and we're going to open this one up. And this is the glucose, the brown one that I'm opening up right now. Get that in there. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the ketone one as well, because if I don't, sometimes the blood coagulates and then I have to stick myself again. All right, and then let's go ahead and grab, this is my Lancing device or Lancet. I don't use the device. I just simply screw this part off. Let's go ahead and let's grab do a finger stick. Ow, 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 ow. Let's make sure we get a good drop of blood. And I probably should have done that a little deeper, but we'll start here. Okay, so that's good. Let's go ahead and let's get another drop for the contour. I think that's going to be good. And so 84 for the Keto Mojo. You see that there. 80 for the contour 78. And then right over here, you'll see that's my G7. It's 85. So let's go ahead and get this one out. I'm going to put the ketone strip in. All right, get that started. And I think I got a good drop of blood. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Well, I was a little worried there for a minute. Okay, there we go. So that started. Of course, I'm going to not let you guys see what that is right now. We'll come back and we'll take a look. But if you think you know what my ketones are, go ahead and drop that in the comments. And we will take a look at that in just a minute. All right. So let's go ahead and let's continue with our discussion about fasting and where we are. So whenever I talk about fasting, and remember, fasting is a tool. Let me say that. Fasting is a tool that we're using. It is not magic, but it is a tool that we're using in the process. Remember, as we talked about at the top of the show, that we often don't succeed, not because we don't have drive and ambition and know-how and all that. We don't succeed because we don't have a process. And so New Year, New You has been a process that we've been using to go down the journey, the pathway to improving our health and reversing our diabetes. Fasting, likewise, there is a process to fasting. Fasting is not just about not eating. There is emotional, physical, mental, social, all of that is involved in fasting. And so if we're going to be successful in fasting, then we want to do the things that are necessary, things that we need to do. We need to put the things in place that will help us in the process of fasting. And so that's what we're doing right now. How do we fast successfully? And whenever I talk about fasting successfully, there are 3 phases that I want us to talk about. Because remember, it's not just about, hey, I'm not eating. It is a combination of things. How do we set ourselves up for complete success in the fasting space? And there are 3 parts of it, at least 3 parts. How do we prepare for the fast? How do we get through the fast successfully? And then how do we break the fast? Because if we do a good job in each of those, then we are setting ourselves up for success. If we don't, then we can have difficulty or it doesn't go as well as we think. And we say, okay, this doesn't work, but it's because we did not have the correct structure. Okay? So fasting. So preparing for the fast, then of course, getting through the fast successfully, and then breaking the fast. So let's go ahead and let's start talking about how do we prepare for a fast. And the first question that we would probably have is, why is it necessary to prepare for the fast? All right, so why do we prepare for the fast? Well, we prepare for the fast because it is a way of getting the body ready, getting the mind ready, getting the environment ready, and we'll go through each of those. But particularly if we're doing an extended fast, sometimes that can be a shock to the system. When I say shock to the system, if you are not ready, if you're not emotionally ready, physically ready, you have not rested, you're in a stressful environment, you're not hydrated, you're not eating a nutrient-dense diet, all of that sets you up for difficulty in the fast. And so that's the phrase there, shock. I probably should change it from the word shock to something else. But it does not set you up for success. Your brain remembers, your mind remembers what it's like the last time you fast. So if you had a poor experience, a bad experience this time, then your brain's going to say, hey, we're not doing that again. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, but often, it's not that the fast itself had an issue. It's that the preparation for the fast, or even sometimes going through the fast, or breaking the fast, right? We didn't do all the things that we needed to do, and so that sets us up for difficulty. And the next time you want to fast, your body is like, yeah, let's not do that. Okay? Also, when we fast, it minimizes some of the common side effects, like fatigue and headaches and irritability. because what is happening at that point is that we have not done a good job of hydration. So we get palpitations. We came into fasting with highly processed, high carb foods. And so during the first phases of fasting, that postprandial period, our body is now having to deal with those high sugars, and the blood sugars are dropping significantly, and that shows up as a headache or irritability. Okay. Also, when we prepare, it helps us maintain focus. Remember, a lot of what happens in our bodies and our minds has to do with what's going on up here, our thought. And so if we are not clear about what we're doing, we're not clear about the purpose, we're not clear about the goal, then when we fast, if there are things that show up, that come in, that may be challenging, if there's some obstacles, if there's some humps, some bumps, some symptoms that you have, then it's easy to get away from the fast, break the fast, and give up on the fast because we didn't have a clear vision of what was going on and what we needed to do and why we were doing this. Okay, so when we're preparing, those are lots of the reasons. Those are some of the reasons why we prepare, because it sets us up for success as we move through the space. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and let's talk about mental preparation, because remember, mind, body, soul, spirit, social, all of that is involved. So when we're talking about our mental preparation, we want to set clear goals. We want to understand why we're fasting. In this space, we are fasting to reverse our diabetes. It's one of the mechanisms, one of the tools that we're using for reversal. You may be someone that's out there who's interested in weight loss. Fasting will help with weight loss. And so you've got to be clear about that goal. You may be someone who is working on improving your cholesterol or improving your blood pressure, or you have fatty liver or polycystic ovarian syndrome, or you have the combination that we call metabolic syndrome, which is dysregulated, so high blood pressure, dysregulated sugar, and dysregulated insulin. And you have a midsection that's bigger for your gender. So understanding your goal is very important, because that now sets you up when you're thinking about fasting. Okay, this is where we're heading. You want to visualize the success that you're going to have. Imagine completing the fast successfully and feeling the benefits of it. Because this now gives you an additional push, because you're like, okay, that's where I'm going, and this is what it's going to be like when I get there. When I talk to my coaching clients, one of the things that we ask them in the coaching space is, well, tell me a little bit about what the goal is. So we talk about the goal. What would it be like if you didn't reach that goal, right? So we talk about that. You come up with that, because that's an emotional thing for a lot of people. Okay? If I didn't do this, if I didn't get there, what would that feel like? What would my attitude be like? What would I be doing in my family? What would my circumstance be like? If I didn't achieve the blood sugar goal, if I didn't achieve the A1C goal, what would that be like? What would that mean for my health? What would that mean for my heart disease? What would that mean for my family if I'm sick all the time? And then now, what would it be like if I succeed? If I am successfully able to get through this fast, if I'm able to improve my metabolism, if I'm able to improve my insulin sensitivity, if I'm able to reduce my A1C, what's that like? What does that mean for me and my family? What does that mean financially? Now I don't have to spend money on all those medications. Now I don't have to spend time in the hospital. I don't have to spend time treating other illnesses that come from diabetes. I have more energy because my body feels better. The cells are getting the energy that it needs. Right? What is that going to be like? So visualize that. And then educate yourself. What fasting method are you going to use? There are lots of different ways of fasting. There is, 16-8, which is intermittent fasting. There are 12 and 12. People do one meal a day. They do 24-hour fasting. They do 5 and 2. They do time-restricted fasting. They do 24-hour extended fasting, as we're doing, 24-hour, 48-hour, 72-hour. Which fasting method are you going to use? and begin researching, what do I need to do? What are the steps in this fasting method? We did several shows where we talked about different fasting regimens and how they can affect and improve certain disease processes. Those are out there on the channel, and it's in the How to Fast Successfully playlist. And then as you're, once again, talking about mental preparation, as you're getting into the fast, begin writing out, documenting, drawing some affirmations, positive affirmations that says, I am improving my metabolism. I am improving my health. I am improving my insulin sensitivity. I am getting a better blood sugar. I am losing weight. I am going to be off of medication for my blood sugar, my cholesterol. I am improving my polycystic ovarian syndrome. My liver is getting better. Begin using those, because those will help motivate you through the fast, right? So we're talking preparing mentally. Once again, how do we prepare? We're preparing for this fast. Now, nutritional preparation. This is important. As I mentioned, often we think about fasting as we're not eating something, right, during the fasting window. Great. But the things that we eat when we are eating also have an impact on fasting. Yeah. Remember, balanced bites, this idea of balanced bites, that everything we eat, everything we put in our mouths, balanced bites, everything that we eat fuels our body. It sends a signal to the body. So we want to fuel it with balanced bites. Balanced bites. We'll talk more about that word balanced as we get further into our season and into our next season, right? That's going to be a big component of what we talk about. So as we are talking about nutritional preparation for the fasting, we want to begin, as we're moving towards the fasting, we want to begin by reducing the carbs and the sugars. Remember, the first 12 hours or first 6 hours actually is the postprandial period. And we'll talk more about that here in just a little while. So in that period, the body is pulling out the nutrients, it's pulling out the things in the food that you've eaten. So if you come into a fast with high processed sugary stuff, the body during those first hours has to spend a lot of time dealing with the stuff that you ate. So if your blood sugar, if you've just eaten, donuts and cookies and candy and cake and sugary stuff, right, and high carbs, then those first hours, the body's spending that time just breaking down the stuff you ate. And so you will feel, or I should say you can feel cravings. And the cravings come because the sugar is there and the body had to produce insulin, or you have to take insulin to bring the sugar down. And remember, insulin stimulates the appetite. So as you're heading towards the fast, you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to minimize the complications in the fast. So nutritional preparation. So reducing carbs, reducing sugars. You want to increase healthy fats. We did a show where we talked about the benefits of fat and ketones and protein. So fats will slow your digestive system. Fats will help to release cholecystokinin, which is one of those hormones that signals that you're full. And so what happens is during the fasting, when those first several hours, you feel fuller longer. So you get through that initial hump into fasting because you did a good job of preparing in the time leading up to the fast. So you want to increase the healthy fats, and we'll talk about some of those when we get to our breaking the fast. Increase water and electrolytes. I've mentioned several times now, if you are not hydrated, then your body has to compensate for the dehydration. If you've not been eating a balanced meal, then you can be deficient in electrolytes. You can be deficient in other things. And so we want to make sure, as we're preparing for the fast, that we are increasing our water, that we're making sure that we're getting the electrolytes we need, so that when we get to the fast, and here's the thing, that most of us, when we are fasting, because we're not thinking about food, we also don't think about drinking. And so you have to be very deliberate in your hydration, otherwise you become dehydrated. I've done that, and you go back several shows, actually several months in our shows, I was talking about the hydration because I was not doing a good job of hydrating. And so that was causing issues in the fast itself. And then gradually reduce your eating window. So often we have people who jump into fasting and say, okay, I'm going to do a 72-hour fast, which is an admirable thing. But if you're not used to it, if you're new to fasting, doing that extended fast is probably not the recommended thing. What you want to do is your whatever your schedule is now, you begin reducing the hours during which you eat. So if right now you sleep for 8 hours, okay, then you're actually eating for 16 hours. Or how many hours is that? 14 hours, right? And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're shrinking that window, the eating window, so that the fasting window becomes longer. And when we start the process, one of the recommendations is that if you don't normally fast, that you work your way up to 1 24-hour period once a week. That's the goal. 1 24-hour period once a week, and then we can extend from there into longer fasts or some of the extended fasts. So nutritional preparation. The other preparation we want to do, and we just mentioned some of this, is hydration. Drink plenty of water. Begin drinking water before the fast. So don't wait until you get into the fast to begin drinking water. Ensure you're taking adequate electrolytes. And there are lots of different ways to do that. There are, I don't have it. Actually, it's over there on the counter. There are some things that you can drink. There are electrolyte package that you can do and put into water so that you're building that up, right? You want to drink, if you want, herbal teas as you get closer to fasting, because that helps to calm you, helps to relax the digestive system, and helps to minimize any complications that you can have as you're moving through the fasting space. And then physical preparation. So remember, mental, physical, emotional, we'll come into that in a minute. So physical preparation, engage in light exercise, some physical activity. So you want to begin reducing, if you're doing strenuous exercise during the fast, unless you're doing fasting workouts. Now, fasting workouts is a whole nother issue, not issue, but a whole nother thing that people do, because when you're fasting, your growth hormone goes up, and growth hormone is the hormone that's responsible for muscle mass and maintaining muscles. If you're fasting, also you're producing ketones. So muscles like ketones, and if you have extra growth hormone, because that level goes up, then you begin getting bulked up quicker, easier, more bulk. And so people will do fasting workouts. But if you're not doing a fasting workout, then you want to begin reducing whatever you're doing to light exercises, because you don't want to be in the fast and be so exhausted that you can't make it through the fast. So reduce strenuous exercises 1 to 2 days before you begin the fast to avoid fatigue. You want to aim for sleep, quality sleep, right? We recommend 7 to 8 hours of sleeping. If you're not well rested, then that sets you up for badness in the fast. Right? But if you are sleeping well, if you're having good quality sleep, then the fast goes better. If you're not getting good rest, then when you get that transition, which we'll talk about here in just a little while, the transition between carbohydrates and fat, then you feel that more profoundly. And people say, oh, I'm feeling drained. And it's because it's a more enhanced feeling that you get because of the lack of rest. And then you want to begin reducing caffeine or energy drinks, because you don't want to go through those withdrawal symptoms during the fast, because that's going to push you towards eating. Okay. And then your environment. So we're preparing mentally, physically, emotionally, environment. So how do we prepare the environment? You want to clean out temptations. Remember, the heat model says that we eat also, the HEA, the A access. When things are around, we'll eat because we have access to those things, not because we're hungry. So you want to begin cleaning out your environment. Remove unhealthy snacks. I would say remove snacks altogether. That's right. We're going to do an episode on snacking. You want to create a fasting friendly zone. Right. So keep your kitchen with teas, water, so that you can use those as you're moving through the fasting, right? And then prepare distractions. Plan some reading, plan walking, plan a trip, plan on an exercising, plan on a hobby, something that distracts your brain from hunger. Once again, structure, a process, not because people don't have drive or because they don't have a desire. They don't have structure and they don't have a procedure. That's why we don't succeed sometimes. And then we want to prepare emotionally and socially. Emotionally, right? It is not just a physical thing, it's an emotional thing as well. So inform family and friends around you what's going on. Let them know what's happening. What are you doing? Hey, I'm going to be fasting on Tuesday, right? So that they don't plan a dinner on Tuesday. And if they plan a dinner on Tuesday and you're fasting, you're going to do one of two things. Well, one of three things. One, you're going to either decide to break the fast, and that's okay if you decide to do that. Or you're going to not break the fast and feel bad that you didn't break the fast and you missed the opportunity to hang out with family. Or you're going to stay away. Either you're not going to break the fast and you're going to feel bad because you didn't. You're going to break the fast, feel bad because you broke it, and you're like, man, I couldn't even stick to that. Or you're going to go and maintain the fast and feel bad because the interaction is different. Or you're going to stay away. None of which is what we want you to do. We want you, if you're going to break the fast, decide on breaking the fast and be done with it. There's no shame. There's no judgment. It's okay. I'm hanging out with my family, with my friends, whatever we're doing. I've decided I'm putting the fasting down for this. And that's okay. No internal struggle. No friction there. Or I'm going to fast. I'm going to maintain the fast, and I'm going to interact with them with everything else other than the food. That's fine. Once again, no internal struggle. But what we don't want you to do is stay away. Right? We want you to hang out, right? Because connection, we're built for connection. But inform the family, inform the friends, let them know what's going on so that you're not planning things at a time when it becomes an issue, right? Don't plan your fast at 10, if you're doing intermittent fasting. Don't plan your fast to start at 5 o'clock when the family doesn't sit down to eat until 6 or 7. Because you're automatically creating friction right there. Identify emotional triggers. What are those things that push your buttons that can set you off the path or set you on a path to eating? Right? So when I went away this past weekend, had some conversations, came back, had some more conversations. And so what I should have done was I should have reached out to my support group and said, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's thinking. I didn't do that. I was like, oh, I got this. But guess what? No, I didn't. Okay? Emotional triggers. And then create accountability, right? This is join a fasting group. Join our group. Join our support group. Find a group. Find a partner that's going to help motivate you and keep you accountable as you're moving through the fasting space. So here's some takeaways in preparing. Get lots of rest. Stay hydrated. Reduce stress, and we didn't talk much about stress, but that's an interesting one that, and let me write this down. I'm making notes of all these things that we need to come back and talk about. And then eat nutrient-dense foods. Not calorie-dense, but nutrient-dense foods. That's the whole idea behind balanced bites. Balanced bites. All right? So that's preparing. So once again, 3 phases. Preparing for the fast, getting through the fast successfully, and then breaking the fast. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the fast, being in the fast itself. And there are some themes that you're going to see that we'll talk about as we move into this space. But when I talk about fasting, I tend to break it into 24-hour chunks. But here we're going to do it a little more finely than that. We're going to talk about it in probably 6-hour chunks, right, as we get through that space. So the first 6 hours, those are called the postprandial phase. This is where the body is breaking the food down. You've just finished eating, you've just stopped eating, and the body is breaking down the food. And you are, you got lots of energy, your blood sugar can be high because there are carbs in the foods that you've eaten, your body's producing insulin, and that insulin level is high, or you're having to take insulin because you're on medication, insulin for the food, right, for your diabetes. So those cells have lots of glucose, and the blood has lots of glucose that's floating by. Digestion is going on, and once again, everything is being broken down. Energy levels are high because they're high, because you have lots of food right there. Okay. So the next 6 to 12 hours is called the early fasting stage, and this is where your insulin levels begin to decrease initially, and glucagon levels start to increase. Because remember, insulin and glucagon are opposites. When blood sugars are high, insulin is up. And as blood sugars come down, insulin goes down, and then glucagon comes out. And we'll talk about glucagon in a minute. So glycogenolysis is happening. So your body has taken some of the food that you've eaten during the first 6 hours. It's packaged it, and it's put it in the liver and put it in other places. And now as the sugar level in the blood begins going down, the body now has to go and get some of that from the liver, and it has to break it down, and now it's giving it back to you. Okay? So this is maintaining the blood sugar levels, because it was high, and then the body stored some of it, and now it's becoming low, and the body's going back and get what it needs. Energy levels can begin to fluctuate, and people, if they're not rested, can feel this like they're getting sluggish, like, oh, my energy is becoming drained, or I hit a wall. So you feel this a little bit more than you would if you are not rested. The next 6 hours transition to using fat. So the body has used up now a lot of the sugar that's in the blood. It's gone to the liver, and it's broken down the glycogen that's there, and now it's begin to look at some of the fat that it has access to. So the liver starts gluconeogenesis. So your body is now forming sugar from non-sugar sources, from non-carb sources, I guess, let me say it that way. Okay? And the ketone levels are actually kind of low at this point, because the body has not in earnest now gone to burning fat. So energy levels may feel like they're dipping once again, because this is another space where people can feel that transition as the body's getting ready to transition. Okay? And then the next 6 hours, 18 to 24 hours, ketosis begins. And we love ketosis. We'll talk about ketosis here in a minute. So glycogen stores are being depleted. And so the body is now having to, in earnest, look to other sources. So ketones are starting to go up. Autophagy is ramping up. It's already started in that 16 to 18 hour mark, but it's now ramping up. Autophagy is that space, or that part of the body, not part of the body, that process in the body that recycles, reclaims broken, damaged, unused cells, and is using those to rebuild, to repair, and to enhance the body. This is where we get decreased inflammation. We get improvement in our immune system. This is where we begin talking about improvement in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia. This is where we begin seeing cancers responding to fasting. Autophagy. And we love this process. And then energy levels begin to stabilize, right? Because now we have a more stable energy source, right? It's because the sugar fluctuates, right? The liver, right, that goes away within 18 to 24 hours. In your blood, if you stop eating, the blood sugar starts going down. But the body has a lot of stores of fat. For most of us, it has lots of stores of fat. So that is a constant, that is a stable source of energy. And mental clarity also begins to improve here, because the body is converting to ketones. Remember, beta hydroxybutyrate, one of those ketones that our body likes. And so clarity begins happening. People say, hey, I feel, okay, my thought process is much better as I'm fasting. And I forgot to say, after those first 6 hours, the drive to eat begins to subside, right? Because the insulin level has gone down. The carbs in your body have gone down. And so the body is not relying on that so much. And so as we're suppressing the appetite, remember pillar number 2, we're suppressing the appetite, then we don't have those cravings, and we don't have that food noise. Okay? which is important, which is why it's important to make sure that we're doing all the things we need to do to keep our emotions, keep the heat model in check. All right, and then 18 to 24 hours, of course, ketosis is beginning. Glycogen stores are nearly depleted, and the body now in earnest is turning to burning fat. And this is kind of like that hybrid car when the batteries, when the gas is going down, then the body now turns to fat to burn, or turns to the battery in the case of an electric car, the hybrid car. Okay. Energy levels. Energy levels are stable now. It's kind of like, I give the example of Tony Stark in the Marvel movies when he unplugs the old arc reactor and he puts a new one in and he turns it up and he gets that burst of energy. Yeah, so now we have a stable source of energy that's coming through. And then fat adaptation. So this now is where we are fully adapted. We're using ketones, glycogen is down, and we have fatty oxidation going on, and those fatty acids are elevated, and our energy levels are stable, and our thought process is better, and our autophagy is going on, and we're getting the improvement in our insulin sensitivity, we're getting improvement in our blood pressure and cholesterol, all of those benefits. Now we're fat adapted, and we're in force now doing all the things that the body is doing all the things that we expect it to do as we're moving through into a better metabolic space. So love it, love it, love it. Now we've not done a fasting review for beyond 24 to 36 hours. So we'll do that. It is something that we have that we've done before. I usually do a 24-hour because most people are there, but I think it's important also to talk about some of those more extended fasts. So we'll come back and we'll do that as well. Okay. So when we talk about fasting, once again, we're talking about how do we prepare for the fast, how do we get through the fast, and then of course, how do we break the fast? And breaking the fast, if we're going to break the fast, we've got to do that in the right way, because if we don't, we could undo some of the things that we do in the fast. Okay, so some of the benefits in the fast. So number one, some tips. So we want to make sure that we're monitoring our blood sugars. If you want to know how your body's responding to fasting, to food, to exercise, to sleep, and all those, I recommend monitoring. For anybody who's interested in metabolic health, get a monitor, get a meter. I have several here that, as you've seen, that I use. I've got my Freestyle Libre, and I've got my Dexcom, I've got my Keto Mojo, I've got my Contour. All right. Now, I use all of those not because those are ones that I would use normally all the time, but I use those so that you could see what it's like, what the blood sugars are. Okay. So if we weren't doing the show, I'd probably pick one of these, right? One of the continuous monitors, and I would have my Keto Mojo, right? Because the Keto Mojo is where I get my ketones from. So monitoring is important. You can pick up a glucose monitor relatively inexpensively from any of the pharmacies, Walmart, Sam's, any of those places, and there's some pretty relatively inexpensive ones. For the Keto Mojo, for the ketones, I use the Keto Mojo. I think I see Steve out there. Steve, can you drop in the comments which one of these monitors you use? Some people will use ketone sticks, so they dip the urine. Some people have the breathalyzer. Well, not the breathalyzer. It's an analyzer that gives ketones. So any of those are beneficial so that you can monitor where you are. Now, I tend to like the finger sticks because I think they're more responsive. For example, the urine, if you have ketones and you dip urine, it may not be in the urine yet, so you think you're not in ketosis. So it takes a while to get into the urine. And then after you've exited ketosis, the ketones are down, and you check the urine, it still shows up in the urine. So it's a little delayed. And then, of course, you have to read the colors and correlate it with a number. So that's what I tend to use one of these. But you can use any of those because what we want to do is we want to monitor. All right. So one, you want to monitor blood sugars. Number two, you want to make sure you're maintaining good portions. Often we have difficulty not because we're eating wrong things, but we're eating too much. Yep. I'm guilty of that. I have come out of a fast before, and I've eaten enough. Say my blood sugar is 60, and I've eaten enough nuts, cashews, and almonds and cheese, right? Which, quote unquote, are supposed to be some of the healthier things. I've eaten enough so that my blood sugar went up to like 200. That's a lot of nuts and a lot of cheese. Okay? So make sure you're maintaining portion sizes. Eat slowly. It takes about 20 minutes for the signal of fullness to reach the brain. So if you just scarf it down in 10 minutes, you think you're not full, and you end up eating more. So eat slowly so that the body gets the body's able to respond to that. And then avoid sugary, highly processed carb foods, because if you eat something that's highly sugary, highly processed, your body has to produce insulin. When it produces insulin, then your appetite becomes stimulated. And if it's a lot of sugar, that's a lot of insulin that has to come out. And as soon as that happens, we begin putting on weight, and our appetite gets stimulated, and we start having cravings. And we end up eating a lot more, and sometimes undoing the benefit that we got through the fasting. Okay, so making sure, and I tell people, whatever you break your fast with, the types of things you break your fast with, that's probably the thing that you're going to eat for the next 24 to 36 hours. So if you break your fast with candies, cookies, cakes, highly processed foods, you're going to want highly processed foods, high carb foods in when you break the fast. Hydration. Make sure that you're hydrated. So water is a good source of hydration always. Coconut water, unsweetened. Herbal teas, because they calm you as well, and they help the GI tract depending on the type of tea that you're using. Those are very good, right? So non-caffeine variety is what I recommend. Proteins, just like fat, when you're coming into the fast, will help you feel fuller longer. Protein will help you feel fuller longer. Protein, they give off, when you eat protein, your body produces protein YY, which is another signal to the brain that I'm full. So fats and proteins will help with that process. So things like eggs, chicken and turkey breasts will be good. Tofu and tempeh for those of you who are vegetarian or vegan. And then healthy fats, making sure that you are including healthy fats. Things like avocados, which is rich in macronutrients. Nuts, right, which that's my thing. Seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds, flaxseed, all of those. Flax seeds are good with omega-3 acid and omega-3 fatty acid and fiber. We didn't talk about fiber. Fiber is a good one to help decrease the absorption of sugar in the body. Okay. And then, of course, making sure that that you're hydrated. A good way to break the fast is with broth. So you guys have seen me here last week. Yeah, last week we broke the fast with a broth, and you guys got to choose. I gave several things here on the show, and had you guys pick what I was going to use to break the fast, and you chose the broth. So broth is very good, right? Vegetable or beef broth or bone broth or actually any kind of broth is good to begin breaking it, and that actually eases you into eating again. Because particularly if you've done an extended fast, as you begin eating, if you're not careful, you can cause GI upset, bloating, increased elimination. So just be mindful of that, right? So vegetable broth, bone broth. And some considerations there. When you're breaking the fast, choose foods that help to maintain, right? And to maintain stable blood sugar levels while offering nutritional value and are gentle on the GI tract. Focus on low glycemic index foods, so glycemic index of 50 or less, lean protein, healthy fats, and make sure that you are hydrated. And that goes back to balanced bites, right? Because balanced bites says whole foods, minimize processed foods, no added sugar, lean protein and healthy fats, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, tasty and flavorful, it has to taste good, and appropriate portion control. And if you do that, then that sets you up for success in breaking the fast. Okay? All right, so let's see. So I see Steve over there. Steve put a number in, and I think he's guessing at what my ketones are going to be. He says 1.8, and he says I use Freestyle Libre 2 for glucose. My ketone meter is a Keto BM from Walmart. Okay, awesome, awesome. There you go. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at blood sugars, and we're going to look at my Dexcom Clarity graph. And of course, I've got to log back in. All right, let's take a look at that. All right, and so you'll see there that my average blood sugar is 137, and this is for 14 days. I'm in target 78% of the time, and my glucose management indicator is 6.6. So if I were to get an A1C, then it would approximate a 6.6. Now remember, the glucose management indicator is a surrogate. It is an estimation, right? It's a calculated value. So it may be slightly different from what you will see in your when you get your blood work, right? But it should approximate that. If I change this to 90 days, you see my average blood sugar is 133. I'm in range 87% of the time, which is 70 to 180, and my glucose management indicators are 6.5. Right, so I love that. So I had my doctor's visit back in end of October, November, and we shared that as a show. Go back and watch that. I have an appointment coming up in February, if I remember correctly, and so we'll be looking at labs again, and we'll have a show where we share all of that information. Actually, I think we shared it in one of our community meetups. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at actual blood sugars over the last several days. And as I said, right now I am 65 hours, like 66 hours maybe. All right, so let's go back here. So Monday we were fasting, right? And so after the show on Monday, we broke the fast, and that's what you see here, right? So this is buffering. This is all buffering behavior. That's what resulted in this right here, right? So those emotions push the triggers, and okay, look at that food. That's going to make me feel better. That's going to make me think. That's going to make me avoid. That's going to make me not process. And so we started eating right there, and then ate the rest of the day. So, of course, here's coming into sleeping, coming into the morning, and so I usually do a roughly 16-8. And so I knew I was going to be fasting starting over here. And so I ate lunch. And so this is lunch. And then right here is where we started fasting. So 190 something. Yeah, 196 or 178. And then 24 hours later, 101. 24 hours after that, so now 48 hours, we're 86. And then 72 hours would be right about here. And so here we are now with blood sugars of 85 and 86. Okay? And you'll see for most of today, my blood sugars have been running in the 70s, 80s. I think that's a 90 up there somewhere. Right? And going back into this day, so this is what is this? This is from the 24 to 48 hour mark. All right, so 90s, 100s. Right here, this bump that you see is probably toothpaste. This one is probably the dawn phenomenon right in here. Today, not big, not much of a bump, right? Let's see. Did I brush my teeth? I think I did. Yeah, so I did, but not much of a bump there, and then not much of a response from the dawn phenomenon. Now this is interesting, and so one of the things that you will find is if you are doing a good job, if you're metabolically adapted, then there are things that can normally cause bumps or spikes in your blood sugar that won't cause as big a spike. Right, so that's another and I keep saying these conversations. I've got to make a list of that one. That one I don't think is on my list. to talk about how the body responds once it's healed to some of the things that you may eat. There are things that you would eat right now that you can't. You say, "Oh my goodness, look at what my blood sugar did," and then once you begin the fasting process, then you will see that those things don't spike the blood sugar as much. Okay. Awesome. All right, so let's go and let's see. I hear some pops going on there. Let's see who's out there. So there we go. So David Hunt, hey man, thank you for coming through. He says hello, hello. Steve says hello, David. Hello at Steve. I like that you are documenting your progress. Oh yeah, man. So we want to make sure that we are walking through this process together. I don't like sticking my finger with needles. More power to you, Doc. Which is why, David, I love the continuous monitors. Okay? Because I put one of these on and I have them on for anywhere from 10 to 15 days. If you're not diabetic, there's the over-the-counter Stello, which is a 15-day. So every 2 weeks, every 15 days, twice a month, you pop one of these things on and they last and you see your blood sugar. So I love that. I love that. Awesome. All right. So let's now go ahead and let's take a look at my... let's take a look at what my ketones are. And I think Steve said 1.8 is what he's guessing. Let's go ahead and we'll get this one out. Go over to my Keto Mojo app and turn this on and then go ahead and get that synced. So it pulls that over. And I think last night it was 1.4. Okay, there you are. And drum roll, please. Oh, wow, look at that, 1.4. So 84 blood sugar and 1.4 ketones. All right, so that's, yeah, the same as it was yesterday. So here it is. So we were 85. Let's go ahead and pull that one up. So we were, let me get rid of that. Oops, there we go. Yeah, so right below, you'll see yesterday at 9:56. So my ketones were 1.4 with a glucose of 85. Today my ketones are 1.4 with a glucose of 84. So pretty much the same to what it was. When we talk about ketones, our ketones that are less than 0.5 considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. And so we want ketones to be 0.5 or higher, as we're talking about the metabolic space, improving cholesterol, hypertension, insulin sensitivity, decreasing blood sugar, losing weight. If you're talking about ketogenic diet, we want ketones that are 0.5 or higher, okay? And so, which is what you see here. If we look at the graphs, you'll see as my blood sugars have gone down as I fasted. So we started over here at 110, and we dropped down to 95, and of course 85, which was yesterday, and I don't see the one for today on here yet. Let's go ahead and get, oh, there it is. And so now my blood sugar is 84, and ketones are 1.4, okay? So ketones and insulin can't exist in the same space. It's like matter and antimatter. You know, in the science fi movies, they say, hey, if you go back in time, don't interact with yourself because you could mess things up. Same thing here. So ketones and insulin can't interact with each other. I don't know why I came up with that example, but it is what it is. All right. So what you want to do is you want to as you're looking at the blood sugars, right, the tan line is blood sugar. As sugar goes down, then insulin comes out, or insulin goes down also, sorry, and then ketones can come up. But once you start eating, if you're eating carbs, then insulin has to come out to process the carbs, and then because insulin comes out, ketones will go away, okay? When I break my fast, I try to maintain still maintain some ketosis, so I'll eat as low a carb as possible to maintain some of the ketones so that I get some additional benefit beyond the fasting window. So when I fast for 72 hours, If I do a good job, notice I say if I do a good job, then I can maintain ketosis. Really, I can maintain indefinitely if I wanted. I tend not to do that. I know that I think Steve, who's out there, Steve is. I think you're all, most of the time you're in ketosis, if I remember correctly, Steve. But you can have a diet that will maintain ketosis for extended period of time. In fact, that's the whole idea behind the ketogenic diet, that you can maintain that. Awesome. All right, so 1.4. So Steve, you were close. 1.8 was what you guessed. And let's see. David says. He said I'm not diabetic. Do you have a link for the Stello? And it's Stello.com. Stello.com. Let's see. Stello. Sorry, Stelo.com. Let me grab that. All right, Stelo.com. And if you go there, then you can see that. Okay. He said, "Do you have a link for the Stello?" That's what it is. Is this the app for the Stello? So the Stello has a different app. Let me see. So here is the. Let me download it because we're on a Stello in a while, and we'll see what. Okay, so there it is. And of course, we're not going to have any login later. We're not going to have any data, but okay, so here it is. So this one is the app for the Dexcom, right? And then this one is the app for the Stello. And right now there's no blood sugar there because I've not been wearing this. But the Stello actually has a lot more educational information than the Dexcom, because what they try to do is they try to educate people who are not in the diabetic space, right? Because it's designed for non-diabetics. And so they'll talk about diabetes and glucose metabolism, how to reduce your risk of prediabetes. And there's a trigger in the app that whatever your blood sugar is, like if your blood sugar is rising or going down, then sometimes that will trigger some educational material in the app itself. So it's actually a pretty good app. Like I said, I don't wear the Stello because I've been doing the Dexcom, but that is available out there. All right, and let's see. David says, does it do cholesterol too? No, this does not check cholesterol. There are devices out there that you can use to check cholesterol, portable devices, but no, this one doesn't. Says, I forgot the cue. That's all right. Steve says, yes. Steve says, my ketones are at 1.3. I'm 26 hours into fasting. Okay, yeah, so let's go back. So Steve, I think you're saying yes to the fact that you do try to maintain ketosis on a consistent basis. And you says your ketones right now are 1.3, and he's 26 hours into his fast. I love it. Yeah. So those ketones very important as we are trying to reverse diabetes. Okay, good source of energy, just like the hybrid car. They help to suppress our hunger. Right. We did a show on what ketones do. So not only do you get the benefit of preparation from the protein and the fats that you can eat as you prepare for the fast, but once you get into the fast and you start developing or producing ketones, the ketones themselves will help to blunt hunger. Okay, so it's just a wonderful process. All right. So I think so. We looked at ketones. We've looked at our monitors. And we did a kind of introduction to or a review of some of our tools. I think one of the things that I want to do as we move into the new season is to actually take each of those tools again and just do a review of them to remind you of what they are. Because remember, we have to practice. We have to train on the tools if we're going to be successful. Remember that in this space, and in your lives, you have unlimited potential to make changes to your health and to your future. What has happened in the past has happened. You can't change that. There may be some complications that you've developed because of decisions that you made. You can't change that. But right now, you can make decisions on how you are going to move forward, how you're going to set yourself up for metabolic success in all those areas: blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fatty liver, Alzheimer's, right? Those neurodegenerative diseases, neuropathy. All of those can be improved if you follow the path, if you follow the journey. And we are building as we move into the new season. I keep saying that. We're building on what we've done so far. That is the basis for us continuing. We're not doing something that we're going to do for a day or 2 days or 3 days or a month or even a year. We're building a process. We're building a format, a structure that we're going to be able to implement and continue doing for the rest of our lives. New year, new you. And you have unlimited potential. You have infinite ability to do that. This is all built on our Triple E formula for success, where we educate, we empower, and we encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level and live creating the life you've always wanted. And we educate with the blogs, the podcasts, the shows. We empower with the tools that we learn as we move through this space, and we encourage with the community that you are a part of. Make sure that you're joining us as we're moving through this space. Remember, there are some things that you're going to run into, those triggers that are going to push you to sidestep, to get off of the plan that you've decided. This giving by the heat model, the habits, the emotions, the access and taste, the habits we form, those routines of things that we eat just because we eat them, not because we're hungry. It's like going to the movies and eating popcorn simply because we eat popcorn at the movies. It's getting together with friends and you have coffee or tea and you eat a donut because that's what we do when we get together. Not because we're hungry, but it's just a routine that you have formed. We eat also because of emotions. We're angry, we're frustrated, we're mad, we're sad, we're glad, we're lonely, we're tired. All of those emotions have an effect on us. It has an effect on our hormones. And when those emotions get high enough, then they push through our decisions that we've made on what we're going to eat, how we're going to eat, when we're going to eat. We also eat because of access, because there are things in our environment that are part of the trigger, part of the memory, part of what seems to calm us. And if we have them in our environment, whenever the emotions happen, we grab them. If they weren't there, you wouldn't eat them. You would have to get up and go buy some. But because they're readily available, we can grab them. Or you get up and you walk by the kitchen as you go to the restroom, and you stick your head in the refrigerator, or you go to the pantry, not because you're hungry, but just because you want to get something, right? Because it's there. Also, we eat because of taste, the bliss point, the perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat. When you eat it, I can't just eat one. That's what the manufacturers want. They don't want you to have just one, right? They want you to come back. They want you to be an ongoing customer. But it's not the food that we're chasing. We're chasing what the food does. The memory that it brings back of that time when we ate that thing with that person and we felt just that way. Or that thing that we're trying to avoid, that food calms. Or that mood we're trying to put ourselves in. Right? We eat because of habits, emotions, access, and we eat because of taste. Remember, the Triple E formula for success is a platform that gives us the ability to learn the tools that we're using to reverse diabetes, and fasting is an amazing tool to be able to do that because it hits all three of the pillars: decreasing insulin, suppressing the appetite, and reducing sugar. The other thing that does that we've learned so far is this idea of balanced bites, that everything in our body or everything we eat fuels our body. We fuel with balanced bites, making sure that we're making right choices to be able to set ourselves up for success. When you come into the space, we want you to enjoy it. We want you to learn. We want you to practice. We want you to get involved. So join the challenges. We do a challenge once a month. We announced that on our show. This month is to make sure or figure out what your SMART goal is as we move into the new year. All right, we'll be talking about that as we get into some of those shows. So make sure that you are in the process of evaluating that. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Right? So that's what SMART stands for. So we do a challenge every month. So make sure that you are joining the challenges. Tell your story. Let us know what successes you're having when you're here, so that we know if you can do it, then we can do it as well. If you're having some challenges, let's come around. Let's support each other so that we all know that we're not by ourselves. And then by all means, make sure that you are sharing this information to let people know that they can be successful in their metabolic space, in their metabolic journey. They can improve the metabolic conditions that they have. They don't have to stay in the same space. If you remember, a couple of years ago, we did a whole series on letting go, the art of letting go, right? When I let go, when I'm thinking about my metabolism, I didn't know where I was going, right? When I fell out of the raft and was holding on, I didn't know where the rapids would take me, but I knew I couldn't stay in that space. And right now, you're in a position, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you do know that you can't stay where you are. You can't keep doing the same thing that you're doing. And you can be that voice for someone in your community, on your job, in your doctor's office, in your family, to say to them, we don't have to keep having these complications. We look forward to seeing you as we continue moving through the rest of this week. Tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Central, we have a video from the vault. And then on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Central, right here, we have This Week in Review. And then on Monday, we're back with Dwain Woode, MD, live. I look forward to seeing you. Have a great weekend. And remember, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life. Avoid complications and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. All right, everybody. We'll see you. Have a great weekend.